Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started today. My name is Webster Thompson. I'm the president of TASTREAM. The presentation today is being presented by Beth Rugg, who was the former assistant director of technology at, did I get that right?
Yep.
All right, at Ithaca College. And the work that she'll be talking about and presenting was at Ithaca. She has now moved on to a assistant vice chancellor role for client engagement in the Information and Technology Services Department at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Also joining us today is Charlene Stubblefield, senior instructional designer, trainer in the Office of Distance Learning. Both Beth and Charlene were in sort of information technology capacities as they implemented TASTREAM, which is effectively an assessment management system, an e-portfolio platform that is highly flexible and part of the work of getting this implemented as an information technology person is working closely with the assessment and accreditation folks on sort of getting the technical needs and the platform configured to meet the assessment needs of the programs, the units, the institution as a whole, both from a improvement outcomes assessment e-portfolio standpoint as well as regional and specialized program area accreditation. So I think across the two implementations, most of those things were touched on. There's a pretty light stack that we're going to go through. Beth and Charlene have agreed to answer questions, and I can sort of help out with informational stuff about the platform. But the presentation is really sort of about the dynamic and the interaction of, again, information technology and sort of the academic side of the house in getting this stuff moving forward, which is, some of you may be aware, can be complex given sort of the nuanced balance of compliancy and improvement and old and new kinds of things at institutions. So we hope this will be a spirited conversation, and we're going to go through some stuff that is, in fact, sort of core to this work. We're going to have an introduction. Depending on where the group is with their knowledge of assessment management e-portfolio systems, we're going to kind of go through a little bit, and if folks kind of need a little bit more background on what that means for this to be more meaningful, we'll try to start out at sort of a medium level, and then if we need to do a little more, we can. We would trust that you would let us know that you need a little bit more. Both implementations had some interesting integration involved. We have been evolving as a company in the area of integration as these opportunities start to open up with things like LTI and other kinds of open data things and single sign-on opportunities. We're going to talk about some of the community issues, getting faculty and others engaged in these things, those involved in this work. Understand that the accreditors are coming is not such an engaging thing for faculty, and but that's in many cases the reality, and how can that be used as a lever, or how can those things, how can you get to a place where that starts to either be accepted or changed to a necessary part of moving the community down the road. And then talking about, as I'm sure will happen throughout the presentation, challenges and things that maybe you would do different next time, or sage advice for those that are looking to engage in this work and are looking for things. And then Q&A. All right, so why don't we start with just an overview of Prairie View. Charlene Stubblefield, Prairie View A&M.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, I'm going to do the thing that I hate to do, but howdy. Y'all supposed to say howdy back. Yes, I'm from Texas. Prairie View A&M University is a historically black college university. We're located outside of Houston, Texas. I'm always surprised when people have heard of us because some haven't. We are the second oldest institution of higher learning in the state of Texas. Woohoo! We're a part of the Texas A&M system, Texas A&M happening to be the first oldest institution. We have about 50 academic majors, 37 masters. We have 4 doctoral programs. And you'll notice I'm not reading anything up there because you can read it for yourself. I'm just kind of giving you a little extra. Again, we're located about 35 miles outside of Houston going up towards Austin, if you've ever been to Texas. Okay?
Hi, I'm from New York, so I'm not going to say howdy. We would say more like, what's up? Although I just moved down to Charlotte, and I don't know yet what we say down south. Ithaca College is a master's level 1 institution located in Ithaca, New York. Our sister institution is Cornell University. You might have heard about that. We have 6,000 students. We're a private residential college, 1,500 faculty and staff. We're organized in 5 schools, and I think what was really interesting about this project is that typically these schools, it's more of a university model where they're pretty autonomous and they work pretty independently. I was involved with the central IT organization, so it was our job to support the institution and all the schools. And specifically, central IT reported out to finance and administration, not academic affairs. So I know that's different at some other institutions. We have about 75 people that work in central IT. My role there was an assistant director of technology instructional services. What I really brought, I think, to the table was both project management experience, and part of my responsibility was instructional technology. So that was kind of where that marriage met with the academic side of the house and bringing this project to fruition.
Okay, so I'm going to do a little background on assessment management. Is this just raise your hand if you feel highly confident that you know what assessment management and e-portfolio management systems are all about? All right, so just some quick background. I don't want to get on my soapbox about the construct of what an e-portfolio is, because I think it is used in a lot of different contexts and is ultimately confusing to an institution or a community that is trying to implement assessment, accreditation, and a reflective opportunity for a group of students. But those are sort of the components, and they get conflated under the label of e-portfolios. And so I would encourage everyone to sort of reflect on that construct as this comes up in conversation at your institutions. Because students reflecting on what they know and they're able to do, and the institution or program measuring what they know for either summative purposes or continuous improvement or accreditation are things that can exist, can coexist, but ultimately if you have half the people in the room thinking that it's the thing the artist carries around and the other half thinking that it's how you get through accreditation, you have a problem at your institution. The TaskScreen platform allows these things to sort of coexist, and we can work closely with institutions to help understand what's important. Aspects of your faculty will be uninterested in doing this for accreditation purposes, and if they're not interested in the student reflective piece, then there are issues and so forth. Rubrics based on outcomes, management of outcomes, curriculum maps, assessment plans, documenting the results of assessment in the aggregate to provide evidence that identify where improvement has been suggested, makes sense, and so forth. Those are the kinds of things that we do. Our platform is highly configurable and is probably, and I'm not sure of all the details, configured very differently at these different institutions. And that sword cuts both ways. If you have more opportunities than probably would be healthy, then you can end up sort of developing an assessment system that can be comprehensive but complex for folks to wrap their head around, but does give the flexibility to really sort of customize a solution for your institution with sort of an off-the-shelf kind of price tag to it. So Beth and Charlene maybe could talk a little bit about that sword that cuts both ways, both from a positive and a negative standpoint, I believe. So that's just kind of a background on the neighborhood that we're talking about today, from a what the tool does and what are the solutions that it brings to some of the issues around, again, improvement, outcomes assessment, accreditation, compliancy, those things. Okay.
So we want to talk about what were the real drivers for us looking at institutional assessment. We started our project in 2012, but before that I want to give you a little bit of our history and our background, where we were prior to this idea of institutional assessment. To Webster's point, I think teacher education was probably the one department and one program that was really had an assessment system in place, and that was required by law. You know, the student teachers had to demonstrate learning as required by New York State. So they had been using an assessment system probably since about 2007 and 2008, but they were the only department. We also, from a personal portfolio standpoint, right, where a student can show digital artifacts as to what their learning was, we had developed a homegrown system probably about the same time, around 2006, 2007. We initially designed that program to meet the teacher education needs, but within a year or two the standard and the process had changed so that they had to go to an outside vendor. But we continued with our homegrown personal portfolio solution. One of the significant drivers for us was in 2008, we had a periodic review done by Middle States, and Middle States asked us to take action in 5 particular areas, all of which were surrounding institutional assessment. Those areas included institutional effectiveness, college-wide assessment processes, general education curriculum, administrative support of assessment, and student learning outcomes and assessment. So basically, Middle States said we had to do better. Therefore, we had to do better, and we had 10 years. Well, we had actually 5 years with which to demonstrate significant improvement in order to keep our accreditation. So that was highly motivating for us as an institution. We also had a new president come on board, and I'm not sure of the exact date when he started. Let's say it was around 2009. He began a new academic initiative called IC 2020. And this took a few years to actually envision and then start to implement. And the goal of IC 2020 was really to develop an integrative core curriculum. As I had mentioned earlier, the college prior to this had really operated as 5 different colleges within the institution. There wasn't a lot of collaboration going on. There wasn't a lot of kind of cooperation or interdepartmental coordination. So I think this initiative was an effort to try to get students thinking systematically and analytically about what they were being taught. Specifically, students were asked to register for a particular theme, and a theme might be identities, power and justice, and a world of systems. And then they would have to look at that theme through 4 different perspectives. So this really required an overhaul of how we were doing our general education requirements, and that was turned into the integrative core curriculum. Now, as part of this initiative, the IC 2020 initiative, all students would have to demonstrate, they'd have to have an electronic portfolio in order to graduate. So that one requirement really drove the need for an institutional assessment system that could do both assessment and that would enable the students to have personal portfolios. So those were 2 of the real drivers for us at Ithaca College. As far as our project goals, we started this project in 2012, and the goals were to simply to define our functional requirements, to find a solution, and then to implement the solution. We also had to take into account, we had a pre-existing agreement with the teacher education program, so ideally we were hoping to be able to find a system with which we could migrate the data from that program into the new system. So that was a concern, and we had to have a system that would allow the students to have personal portfolios that they could design on their own. Ideally, we wanted the system to integrate with the various enterprise systems that we have on campus. We're Banner School, and we use Sakai as our learning management system. We were hoping to integrate with Active Directory for authentication, and we have a portal environment. So we had a number of different functional requirements. We did the RFI in the summer of 2012. And this part, the beginning phase, was really led by the academic arm of the project. So I was the IT co-lead along with Danette Johnson, one of our associate provosts. So together we led this project. And the provost's office really took the lead, as I just alluded to, in really doing the initial research stage. We came together over the summer as a team, a representative team from across all 5 schools, as well as student affairs, and a few other international programs, a few other discrete programs to look at the options. And then we made a decision regarding what we thought would be the best tool. We were looking at a phased-in approach, which I think was a little perhaps different for our project. So we knew IC 2020, the students coming in beginning the fall of 2013 was the first cohort of students that would have that graduation degree requirement applied to them. They were the first cohort of students that would participate in the integrative core curriculum. So that's what we were working towards. So we did the research in the summer of 2012. We knew we had to go live by fall of 2013. And going live meant that that entering freshman class would start participating and using the assessment system, and then for the next 3 years, every incoming class would be adopted into the system. So it really is a 4-year implementation, staged over time. And the first courses that were impacted were those associated with teacher education and with the first-year seminar program. So that's a little bit about our project and the drivers for our project and how we approached it.
Okay, have I got a story to tell you? This is what happened at Prairie View. In, I think, 2006, 2007, we had another project or another company who was our assessment management system. All of a sudden, this company, the person who developed the product was a professor. It was a great product. It wasn't the end-all, be-all, but we could see the potential in the product. He sold it to a corporation. And guess what this corporation did? 1 year before our SACS visit, they sunset the project. I mean, go with me for a minute. I'm in my office, I'm on a conference call, and all of a sudden they say sunset. And I'm an intelligent person, and I go, what the heck does sunset mean? I'd never heard it before. Basically, they say you have to get off this product, and we're no longer supporting it. So after some discussion with legal and going through all of that, we agreed that they would have no other issues. They would not support us technology-wise. They agreed that we could stay on the product, and then after SACS, we had to get off of it immediately. So that's what the agreement was. So this is, up there it says drivers for adopting a assessment system. Really, it was the drivers for adopting a new assessment management system. It changed everything. Now what we wanted was a company that was stable. I mean, seriously, we wanted a company that was going to be around. We wanted a company that understood higher education. We wanted a company that wasn't going to sell to a corporation, or if they were already a corporation, they were invested in higher ed or even, you know, K through 12, whatever. We needed to know to be there for us, and they weren't going to use that dreaded word sunset. Okay, once we did all of that, and of course, with the prior system, we'd already centralized everything. We already had a good system going. And again, I'm not going to repeat some of the things that Beth, did I say the right name? That Beth said, because we did some of the same things she did. But some of the other things we did, because of the bad taste in our mouth of what happened with the prior system, we were looking for a system that was, that sounds so funny every time that happens. Okay, that sounds so, that, you know, came to the point, it brought some things to the table. It had to be robust with reporting. That was important. That was a negative that we didn't get with the other system. If we had stayed there and they, you know, we had an opportunity to go to, you know, the system 2.4, you know, we would have gotten it, but we didn't get it. So we were looking at the end result of the tool before we looked at the beginning, how you inputted data. We wanted to know the reporting part was going to be very, very robust and, you know, that type of thing. The next thing we looked at was the prior system was very, very academic. And we wanted a system that worked and was customizable for non-academic also. And that seems something you would think it's obvious, but it wasn't. In the prior system, there was the word used course, and you could not change it. Well, non-academics, when they saw the word course, and we're just pretend it's your department, they couldn't get that past their minds. So the system had to be very, very customizable where we can change things. It had to be customizable at the top level, but also down to the different departments. So, and I didn't give you my background. I am a computer science person. I'm a techie, kind of in the package of being an instructional designer. But we needed this information to help us to clearly understand where we were coming from because of our prior experience. So these were all the things kind of pushing us towards this adoption of this new product. It was very important. What we ended up having, and I know I may be jumping ahead to some other slides, but what we ended up doing was we had a cross-disciplinary committee come together, non-academics included. We had maybe 4 or 5 vendors come on campus. They had to do live demonstration, and I felt so bad for those vendors. Because of this past issue, it was like some of them were standing in front of a firing squad. The people were angry and, shooting off questions. But in the end, it was because of our past experience, and we just wanted to make sure the product did the basics, but it also did some things that this other system didn't do. So these were all of the main things that were pushing us towards adopting this new system. Now, of course, it would do, any accreditation. We do NCADE, ABET, all of that. All of that was kind of a given. But these were all of the things that drove us to get this new system. Now, you can go to the next slide. Are you already there?
I'm on goals.
Cool. Again, it had to have an electronic portfolio. The electronic portfolio at our school, though, is still only in the College of Education. They're the main ones who use it. Now, when we first, our faculty and administration, every time we introduce a new system, they always are wondering about how are the students going to adjust. The students could care less. I set up hours of training and the students never showed up. It's because they talk to each other. They like each other. It's the faculty who don't like each other a lot of times. So they were the ones that we had to deal with the training and things. And as far as the e-portfolio was concerned, the students so surprised us. There were seniors who were upset because we introduced this product as they were leaving the campus because they could see the benefit of this electronic portfolio, not just in the College of Education, but we had students, once you get access, and they saw the potential in, building out, gathering their information. So that was an unexpected goal that was met, even though it wasn't, necessarily in our list of goals. The integrating the system with Banner was huge. Now, the university didn't ask for this. This was me asking for it because I was the one that dealt with the hours of dealing with data that didn't work successfully. If it didn't integrate in, I had to go in and do some manual stuff. So this project or this product, they actually did a foolish thing. They had no idea who I was, but I sent them an idea of, we use Moodle, and they already had Blackboard taken care of as far as the LMS, but I gave them these ideas of what I wanted for to happen with Moodle, and they said, oh, it's coming. And you guys know when companies usually say that, they're like, yeah, in a year or two, yeah, right. They actually asked me to be on this project to integrate Moodle. And then a couple of days later, the programmers from the company actually called me for a conference call, and we got it going. And within, I'm going to say, a month's time, they actually had the Moodle integration. We may have started in May. I'm using the integration right now, piloting it in the summer, planning to use it full on for fall. So they quickly, and that was another important thing, to quickly get things done. Technology is moving fast. It shouldn't take a year to get something this important implemented. So that was some of the other projects, great projects that we were able to do. Our College of Engineering are already starting to run reports. We're a campus what we call train the trainer. A company comes to our campus, they train me and the instructional designers, and then we translate it into how best to train our faculty and staff. And so with the reporting tool, everything was going so quickly. The College of Engineering needed reports, and they have gone out there and they have beat the reporting tool to death, but they're getting what they need for their ABET accreditation. Did I hit them all?
I think that's it.
Okay.
So just a couple points. I think that both Beth and Charlene got involved enough in the content, the processes, the purpose of the assessment, what the institution was trying to do, and also had strong information technology background. So I'm not sure what the group in the room is here, if you are on the academic side and you're interested in technology, or if you're on the technology side and you know that your institution is headed this way. But certainly, both Beth and Charlene had to get enough understanding. This is not, hooking things up or simply the integrations, but also really understanding the purpose and the assessment that was happening as well. And can you talk a little bit about how you came to sort of get to the point where you got invested in the actual, because you really have to have a sense of what you want to do, or you don't know how, it's not going to be clear how to kind of configure the tools. Can you talk a little bit about that side?
I think I've already talked about it. It was that dreaded word sunset, and that's kind of what did it. Now, how Prairie View is set up differently than Betts University, I actually work for the Office of Distance Learning. I'm an instructional designer. We have, there are 3 instructional designers. I used to work in corporate, and I never heard of, what do you people at higher ed say, other duties as assigned? I never knew that existed. So when I came to Prairie View, because of my technical background, I started working with assessment, and then all of a sudden this has become my job. So that's my way into doing this. And the Office of Distance Learning reports directly to academic affairs. So we're not under IT. I just happen to be a person with IT experience who happens to be working in distance learning, who reports directly to academic affairs. I think as far as academia at our campus, things are top down, where academic affairs implement something and it goes down, and everybody pretty much does it. There's someone in here who works at our campus, and just act like I'm telling the truth. But pretty much everybody does what they're told on our campus, just like they do on your campuses and in your companies. Everybody. So because academic affairs said we need to implement this, that's what happened. That's how there was no buy-in. You have to do this for accrediting purposes, and that's what you have to do.
I am laughing because, to Webster's point, this was a whole new vocabulary for me and my team. I think the only way we really learned it was just working with TaskStream as a vendor so closely. They were very, very patient as far as just continually being willing to answer our questions, be available to us, host webinars, do demonstrations. A DRF, right? Digital...
Directed response folio.
Directed response folio. I guess I'm already starting to forget what it means. Just really very specific and unique terms that I had not run into before in my various IT implementation efforts. So it was interesting for us because we did let the Provost's office and academic affairs take the lead, especially for the initial pilot, and then we kind of came in when we were looking at the enterprise implementation. And I'm not sure that was actually the best approach, because we made some decisions early on that tripped us up a bit because we didn't really understand the vocabulary. We didn't understand the implications of role definition, of even accounts, having a kind of one account and what it could or could not access. So we learned the vocabulary by working with our academic folks, working very closely with the department leads as they were talking about student learning outcomes, and then just really through the graciousness of TaskStream, willing to answer just about every help call that I put out there. So this isn't, I mean, I will be very honest. I can be fairly critical. I mean, support, right? If the support is not going well from the vendor, I would let you know that. And support is very important because, you contract for something that you need. And I will say TaskStream has a robust support infrastructure for both students and faculty, to the point that our help desk and our service desk was not comfortable because we had turned so much of the support over to the vendor, which we really had not done to the same extent that we did with this implementation. So, we learned the vocabulary by getting our hands dirty, by getting in there and trying to work the project, but it did take longer than I would have liked and hoped, and I'm not sure if that was my problem, or I'm not sure there's any way we could have changed that, Maybe I was just a slow learner.
Well, I think another consistent theme across both of these implementations is they didn't take no for an answer, I think is one thing, and were available to work through the issues. And I think both implementations also had a systemic approach, as opposed to let's have this one group kind of do something and we'll look at it. Well, engineering might be doing something completely different than education. Then you go to look at how this might go across the campus, and it's a different kind of thing. Gen Ed assessment or institutional effectiveness work looks different than your School of Ed's CAPE requirements and so forth. So I think that at the outset there was a sort of at the campus level approach as opposed to the pilot in one place. Sort of moving into a little bit more specifics vis-a-vis integration. Tasker, I would say in the past probably 2 years has been aggressive and has had an evolving sort of integration and data exchange growth spurt, if you will. Those familiar with LTI and some of the other standards that are around have made it a lot easier for us to get information from other systems to drive convenience. A lot of the things that get set up in both of the platforms, and I think both campuses either have, and I think is Prairie View primarily AMS now, or and I know Ithaca's what LAT for you, and same or.
We're LAT, which is maybe the student side of it. The AMS side is more of the administrative reporting side, and we would love to say that we're both, but we're more, you have to get the students in it and get that side of it taken care of. And now we're aggressively, I actually have an intern right now waiting for an email direction from me to continue populating the AMS side. And what we're going to do on the AMS side is we're going to get our old SACS report, which is on a web-based, web browser type system. And she's literally copying and pasting all of it into the AMS side so that when they start looking at the 5-year report or the next SACS report, they can see what did we do before, and it's in this new system. So we're kind of more heavy on the LAT
yeah,
side.
So LAT is a measurement tool. It allows an academic program, whether that's Gen Ed or a domain, to say here are the signature assignments, here are the tasks that we want to use rubrics that are based on Gen Ed outcomes or program outcomes, so that we can aggregate that information by, let's say, cohort, and start to look at effectiveness data or improvement, either by individual student or, again, aggregated. The Accountability Management System, AMS, is not a tool that involves transactions with students, but where an academic program, as an example, can get a unique place to say, here are the program student learning outcomes, here's our assessment plan, here is the data, the aggregate data associated with the assessment that we did in a given cycle, and here is an improvement plan that documents actions taken regarding the data that we collected in assessment. So those familiar with regional accreditation or specialized program area accreditation, that's effectively what they want to see. We don't care what your learning outcomes are, but we care that you have an articulated set, that there is something is written that says here's what a student knows and is able to do as a result of this academic program. And then we want you to demonstrate, that is, prove, that you are in fact assessing those things and that you are using that data to improve your programs. That's, to the extent that you think that accreditation is the law, that is the law of the land. And that's why I think there's varying degrees of interpretation and participation. In many cases, this is effectively asking your people to do something, A, that they aren't interested in doing, and B, that they don't think is part of teaching and learning. So wherever you stand on that argument, this probably is not going to go away. And that's why people are either in a panic or have effectively been able to move their communities over. And can you actually, before we jump into this, can you guys talk a little bit about, have you seen any sort of change in culture, attitude, briefly talk about any sort of, oh my God, we're never going to get there, and the biggest naysayer has now,
I mean, I would believe at Ithaca that we have seen a huge change. When I mentioned this was a president's initiative, so that's a top-down initiative. So the faculty were pretty anxious about what that meant. This had never really happened before in the history of the institution, and they were resistant to some kind of top-down change that would force them to change their, that might affect their curriculum, that might mean more work. So there was a lot of fear and anxiety going into this project. Over the course of time, I think as faculty got together and as they did come to agreement on what student learning outcomes would be as they learned to communicate together, we really did see momentum. I mean, there was a lot of resistance at first, but I would say by the middle of the spring of 2013, we had to go live in fall. There really was some momentum that was being picked up. There was still anxiety through the implementation because it took a while for people to understand what the impact was. And in fact, the impact turned out to be fairly minimal. For teacher education, it was big just because it was using a new system, but it wasn't necessarily culture changing. It was just a new tool. For the other faculty members participating in this new IC 2020 program, and especially for the freshman seminar faculty, they had the biggest impact. But ultimately, all it meant was that they had to have clearly articulated student learning outcomes. They had to show the tool to their student, and at some point in the semester, the students had to upload an artifact. So really, the impact at a course level was pretty minimal. And then for our implementation, the provost brought together a group of faculty who volunteered to be evaluators. They received additional payment in order to participate in the activity, and they came together in January for evaluation. So the reality was people were forced to do something a little bit different, but it had minimal impact, and then we really did see a lot of momentum as a result of that, how we kind of phased it in.
The way we phased it in at Prairie View is we started with 3 colleges. We started with the biggest college who deals with core, which is our arts and sciences. Then we did the College of Engineering and the College of Education. Going into this, because education had dealt with assessment, I thought they would be easier. I thought they would just not be they would be a breeze. That was not the case. I think ultimately, if I could label people, I was so surprised that arts and sciences was pretty big, but one of the key things with implementing this is having a policing person. The associate dean of the College of Education, she knows how to police her large group of people, and she basically would articulate what needed to happen, or if we had training, everybody would show up, which made it, their implementation to me was simpler or easier. I enjoyed that part of it. Education, they came in grumbling and, you know, they're the experts, but it was a little bit tougher with them. But engineering, they were the most hilarious people I've ever dealt with in my life. What they did was they came in and they told me, Ms. Stubblefield, this system should be doing this. And they were telling me how the task streams need to write the system to do this, even before they'd even touched the system. But we allowed them to do their kind of complaining a little bit. And then once I assured them that I would articulate their task stream, what was wrong with their system and how crappy their system was, no offense. And then all of a sudden, their dean or their policing person came in and said, okay, that's enough, let's get started. And it took them a month to stop arguing to agree on how to use the system. Once they started that and got an understanding, it was perfect. I mean, within 2 weeks, they were all caught up and doing what they needed to do. So you see the buy-in, I think because of our prior system, there was already a buy-in. It's just what tool are we going to use to get it done, and what, you know, now I don't even hear from the engineering people. They don't talk to me anymore. They're, you know, they've got it. They're doing their thing now. They don't need me for, at first I thought it was just this horrible, oh my gosh, they don't like this system. No, they're just the smartest people in the world. And they think everybody's dumb. That, no offense to you guys, but that's the different mindsets. And so you could tell we've gotten past technology and assessment. Now we're dealing with the personalities of the different departments in education, or departments of the college. So I think there was an understanding of this has to be done, and there are people who are still not doing it. And there's a professor at our campus called, his last name is actually Doctor. So his name is Dr. Doctor. Doctor is not a technical person. He's what I call Prairie View 1.0. Prairie View 1.0 are the old school people. Then I'm a Prairie View 2.0. You know, I'm into technology, wanting to speed things up. Even as we're implementing this, I do not expect 100%. I expect that someone who is doctor, they'll never do this. If we really want him to do this, we're going to have to get somebody to come in and assist them. But you see, we've gotten past all of the issues with implementation to people know they have to do it, and we're dealing with personalities and not a tool. So that's what happened at our school.
Okay.
Just one final
Okay.
comment. When we closed out our project, the group that had been working on it wanted to continue to meet every 6 months just to check in and to see how we were doing regarding assessment, using the tool, but really what our best practices were. So to me, that's a pretty, Charlene's great with the stories. I don't have as many funny stories, but you know, that's significant when a group of people wants to voluntarily continue to meet to talk about a topic.
Okay, so we did a little engagement stuff, which is, I think, the point after IT infrastructure and integrating. I think the two pieces are Prairie View leveraged our LTI and Moodle integration. One of the things that happened is actually we did work in like Moodle 2.9, and they were on 2.7 and 2.8, so that we had to sort of, you know, we said, yes, okay, we did the integration, and then we had to do some work. So that's kind of the follow-up stuff that you know, we did.
But because of them, one day I'm on the phone, the two programmers, I don't know the other guy's name, but I know their name is Mike and Mike. And I just say Mike and Mike so I don't have to know the last name. And one day we're talking and they just say, hey, why don't y'all go to the next version? And I go, you know what? Good idea. And because of their conversation, and there were some other things that we wanted, in the fall, this fall, we're going to use this new integration tool, which when the students log into Moodle and they go to TaskStream, it's now, they can't tell that they're in another product, except in the one corner there's this powered by TaskStream. That's it. It's all integrated. Before this, it was a pop-up window that would show up, and it was a little bit different.
Yes, so basically the integration frames up a submission task right within, in this case, this is in Moodle. We have this obviously for any LTI application, including Sakai. Although I don't think that was available when you were around. And we've done some extended stuff. We had to tap in actually to the APIs of Canvas and Moodle and Blackboard to make this a more seamless integration. For products that we haven't tapped into the API like Sakai and GensBar and some of the others, we're waiting for customers to request that. But it basically allows us to at some point in time pull enrollment information for the course sections, and then there's an auto mapping that connects the requirement in TaskStream to the course section so that it's a seamless you know, authentication, so that the experience of uploading into, whether you're considering a portfolio or an assessment task or a signature assignment, it feels to the student like they're still in Moodle or Blackboard or Canvas, and that's evident, just some screen grabs here. Okay, so from Ithaca, Beth, you want to talk about, I think you did
Sure.
you pulled some stuff in from Banner?
Sure. We did not integrate with the LMS, so we were using Sakai. And I believe, I don't remember about the LTI, but part of this, what we were struggling with was we needed, in education, the faculty very much had the mindset that assessment was all course-based. And that was a mindset that we wanted to move away from. And our LMS implementation is still course-based. So there was some just kind of cultural intentionality behind that decision. We weren't sure there was a lot to be gained from it at that point in time. But I really wanted to focus on our integration with Banner because from a central IT perspective, right, I believe we wanted automated processes. We wanted to use the existing data. We wanted to have jobs run on a regular basis. So that was our goal. Now, what I realized, we never really articulated that well, I think, to TaskStream in the kind of vendor selection process. I think up to this point, Webster alluded to it, you know, the system was kind of designed so that a department admin, let's say a teacher education admin, could go and upload a CSV file in order to create accounts and or do course enrollment using their data exchange. That makes complete sense, but we're central IT, so we want to design a system for the enterprise that's more automatic. So that's where we really dug into it with TaskStream, looking at some of the Banner integrations. Now, one thing that tripped us up a bit, and this is part of our lesson learned, the provost office led the first half of this project, the actual research and then signing of the contract. I actually think that we should have been a little bit more involved in that because from an enterprise perspective, well, whenever you're looking at licensing agreements, there's head counts versus the actual number of accounts that you have in any given system. So we were sized based on head count. The provost entered into that agreement. I'm not sure we would have caught it or not, but when we actually went to implement, we didn't have enough licenses. Now, Webster and Taskstream worked with us to make some adjustments, but I think that was probably completely avoidable, but we just didn't see the contract until it was actually signed. And because of that, we had to do some workarounds, so that was part of our lesson learned. But we basically, and Taskstream, our initial implementation in the fall, we did manual uploads with the goal that by the spring of 2014, we would have an automated SFTP process. And Taskstream developed that with us, and that was great because it really met our needs. So by the spring semester, middle of the spring semester, I think, we were having daily feeds, dumping our data onto Taskstream server using secure FTP, and then it was uploaded into Taskstream. So that is an automated process now as far as the account creation goes, the course and program and enrollment information goes. So that was huge. Another thing just to be aware of if you're considering these systems is consider what happens when the student graduates, because you have to think about those integration points again. We at Ithaca College wanted to make sure that our students could maintain their portfolio for 6 months. So basically, we as an institution agreed to pay that fee for them. But then what happens at that 6-month point in time? Taskstream has a built-in way that a student can move from being the license is paid for by the institution to where they enter into a personal subscription. So we had to work to make that be as apparent and yet seamless to the student as possible. I guess for us, I want to talk about the demographic data. I think Charlene alluded to the reporting, robust reporting that's in Taskstream. This is one of the first projects I ran into where we really had to look at the data and the data that we were sending to an outside vendor. We had to get permission from the data owners in order to send that data to Taskstream, and there was discussion about why does Taskstream need this data? Why can't we run these reports from our own data store? We made the decision that we couldn't, it wasn't an easy replication to do. The data that's in Taskstream is very unique. A student artifact lives in Taskstream. It doesn't live in our student information system. Therefore, we were best served by using the reporting needs of Taskstream. But we also, because we were starting this new program, we had to imagine or we had to define what the data fields were that we would want to report on. We knew what we needed for teacher education because we were experiencing that, but we didn't know what we would need for this new IC 2020 program. So first it took some time to just figure out what fields might we want to report on in the future, and then get that information, get permission to get that information to Taskstream, and then be able to actually run the reports. And that was another real collaboration with Taskstream that worked pretty successfully. The only other integration point I wanted to talk about quickly was our portal integration. And basically what this allowed us to do was we brokered the logins through our portal environment to Taskstream. And that worked well for our implementation, but there were also some problems associated with this type of integration. Because when the login is brokered, then the students don't actually know what their password is in Taskstream. So for some reason they go to www.taskstream.com, they're not going to be able to, they don't know what their credentials are. So there was some intentionality for why we did this, but there's also ramifications that we had to just work around a little bit, fix some generic email templates that go out of the system. But it did work for us.
Okay, we're running a little short on time. I think we kind of talked about engagement and collaboration earlier. So I'm going to kind of flip through that stuff. Do you guys have maybe one point to say about training support and strategies? Again, briefly, we want to get to some questions about how training in terms of new tools, new processes, just a minute or so about how you handled that. You talked about compensating faculty, I think, Beth, but do you have anything else to kind of add to I think, Charlie, you said
right.
Your students didn't need any training, and I think that you said you compensated some faculty to get the ball rolling. So do you have anything else to add about the kind of onboarding?
Yeah, we really partnered with academic affairs. So as we were deploying the new system, we went into departments, we showed them, we told them what to do. We developed, again, there is training within Taskstream, but we wanted to we were requested by faculty to come in their class and actually show students what TaskStream looked like, and that was very successful. It took all of 20 minutes. The students really don't need it, but the faculty need to provide it to the students. So I think that was our lesson learned there.
I think the only thing we did was we gave each instructor a student access so that they could go in and feel what the students see. That's about the only thing that we did, make sure that they could go in themselves and say, what do my students see?
Okay, so any questions that anyone has regarding anything that we discussed today or anything else? I do want to add that we have yet to find a client that will let us integrate directly with their student information system. That secure FTP, you know, have the academic folks say what data they want, and we'll go put that where they want it. So if anyone is a current user and is interested in a direct link to Banner or PeopleSoft or anything else, we're more than happy to do that development, but have really yet to find an organization that feels comfortable doing that, which we understand. So when we talk about integrating with the SIS, it is in all cases an export-import capability, and then that gets automated, but that's what everybody seemingly is comfortable with.
I just, as a final comment, I mean, the whole point of this, or the title, was about collaboration with academics, and I don't believe our project would have been successful without being co-led by both IT and the academic side of the house. We really needed the provost to help lead and guide the faculty, to be the policeman, to get the work done that only the academic side of the house can do. So if ever you're looking at a system like that, I think personally that was a great strategy for us. Faculty are very afraid of IT. They don't want the tool to supersede the content or their curriculum or their goals for teaching and learning. And I think by having the academic side of the house take a very visible role, that helps mitigate that fear and anxiety.
Ditto. She said it all.
You said ditto.
Any questions? Did I mention it's Lauren McCarty's birthday today? Lauren, did I mention that?
I think we should sing happy birthday.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, thanks very much for coming. Thank you, Beth and Charlene. There's some very exciting things that the company is working on with the AAC&U and the SHIO on value rubric benchmarking project. I encourage you to go check out those websites to read about that work that we're supporting. We're also starting to consume state teacher appraisal data for in-service teachers in the state of Delaware for the preparation unit to actually have real employment outcomes, to compare that with how their candidates performed and what their behavior was and what they were doing while they were being prepared, and then how that can be correlated with actual impact on the K-12 students that they are teaching. So that is a very exciting project, and that's another example of laws being needed to change in the state to get that data. So from an employment outcome and a kind of the ultimate, well, here's our graduation rate, and they were really psyched when they were here, or, you know, we know what the median salary is, but now going into professions and looking at what are they measuring actually when they get out into the workforce, and how can we look at the things that we're doing while they're under our care at the academy, and what does that mean when they get out into their careers of choice. So I would encourage everyone to look at those projects, because I think they're indicative of where everything is headed. And once that data starts to be available, folks that are going to have to now get up to speed very quickly to try to synthesize that are going to wish they had gotten started earlier. So that is my pitch to you all to get started in this work, whether it's with TaskStream or other vendors. I think that you should embrace this stuff because it's coming fast. Thank you very much.